Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I'm back to share the next square that I've made as part of the Great Big Little Stitchery Swap, which is being hosted by the lovely Annie Claxton over at Arty Farty Annie. You can see a link to her in the description below. So this is the Stitchery Swap square that I have made for the lovely Michelle, and Michelle has been just such a lovely commenter and liker and supporter of my creative adventures, so it's really lovely to be sending her something special that I have made by hand and stitched especially for her. So as with all my Stitchery Swap squares, I like to make them having in mind the things I know about the person, and if I didn't know a lot about them, I asked them to tell me a bit about their passions, their loves, the things they like. So a little bit about Michelle to start. Her grandmother taught her sewing, and so sewing's really important to her. She loves quilts, and her favourite quilt is the double wedding ring quilt. She's a country girl at heart, rural Kentucky, and grew up sort of riding horses, picking strawberries, vegetable garden, tomatoes and canning, having animals around her, so cows, goats and pigs are her favourite animal on the farm, having a log cabin. So I just had to create this particular piece. I knew from the get-go this is what I was going to be creating. I had this lovely section of fabric from the Sewing Lair online op shop, which had lovely farm scenes on it, including beautiful pigs. So I had put that aside till I was getting to Michelle's square, and I've used that as my base, but then I've really amped up the patchworky style of it by then stitching around each of the individual elements, and then I've also used the scene to create a pocket and to bring the foreground of the scene forward and to push the background backwards, but still with some fun textural elements. So I'll bring it up so you can have a little close look, and then we'll have a look at each of the elements. So you'll only be seeing this video when Michelle's actually received her square, so I'm filming it now, and it probably won't be seen for another 2 weeks or so. I might even be on holidays by then. So in the foreground, we've got some lovely little, I guess, vegetable patches, because I did want to incorporate the vegetable garden. And I've added these sweet little seed beads. I think I might have shown you these once before. Let me see if I can open the packet without spilling them everywhere, as I did last night. These are just the sweetest little green coated, but then they have a red center in them. So they reminded me of little strawberries, for example. And Michelle had said, yeah, picking strawberries is one of her fond sort of country pastimes. And then I've got this little vintage embroidered flower stitched down here with these other flowers that are printed on the fabric. And I also used a variegated reddy green thread for actually stitching the little strawberries on. So aren't those beads just super, super cute with the variegated colour on them? And then, of course, the beautiful pig. And so I did a blanket stitch around him so that it actually looks like he is appliqued onto the fabric, even though he was part of the fabric. So stitching all the way around. Again, I'll give you... And so blanket stitch is fabulous for that sort of effect. It's really made him sort of stand out. And I like how the little blanket stitches kind of give the sense of the pig having lots of nice piggy fat on him, because that's what pigs do. We don't fat shame the pigs. The pigs are allowed to be as they are. And then we've just put two little stitchy crosses down here. I've done some more blanket stitch, like little grass along the border there. So a little green. Again, just with a... That one was just with a regular... I think it was just this one. This regular sewing cotton. And so then we get on to the pocket that I have made. So I cut along the fabric here, and I cut along the fabric here and around to part way, just so that I didn't want them fully joining up. So there was fabric left here, and I put in extra reinforcing stitches here as well. And then I used my Wonderfil Razzle thread, this one, to stitch along this edge, because I wanted to keep it lighter like that garden bed was. And then I use my variegated green razzle thread to stitch along here and along here. And then I put some little French knots on this tree. And I obviously did the sewing here before I sewed this piece down to my backing piece. So I did all the sewing on this foreground piece first, apart from obviously this stitch, which is what I used to sew it down. And then after, yeah, there was another stitch down here once it was actually ready to sew down. So let's take a look at what I have in the pockets. So this one I've sewn around the top of it so that it actually looks like a continuation of the shrubbery. But then when you pull it out of its little pocket, it is a sweet little strawberry. And again, I've sewn around to join the two bits of fabric together because it has a strawberry design made out of two different fabrics. I used some of the fabric I was using for one of my other squares, this red and a green that goes with it, which I can't immediately put my hands on. I used that to make the little strawberry top and the strawberry body. And then I attached my little vintage French laundry labels that say Love CO, my initials, onto that. So that is the sweet little strawberry, and I just love these Wonderfil threads for doing that that overstitching. It gives them a really lovely textural look, and I just adore that this just pokes in the pocket, looks like some shrubbery until you pull it out, and then you're actually pulling a nice big strawberry out from the patch. And then, actually I'll pop that back in. And then from this pouch, we have one of my hexies, because given her grandmother taught her sewing and that she loves, and that Michelle has a love of quilts, I thought I would send her one of my little hexie flowers. These are made with some of the burgundy bonheur fabrics from French General, another little vintage fabric, and a little Australian, it's an Australian bottle brush fabric in the middle. So just sending her a bit of our Australian bush as well. And then on the back, I used a little bit of this very fun chicken and rooster fabric. So that's the chicken and rooster. And I thought, yeah, that goes really nicely with the tones and the colours and adds a bit more of the farmyard fun. But what I love is that when this one is in the pocket, it actually looks like just two little barns or something in the scene, just sort of sitting there like two little grain sheds or something like that. So I like that. And then this is actually a little pocket in and of itself, and I've put in a note especially for Michelle in there, and that just slides all the way in and just, yeah, sits neatly down against that and is easy to then pull out, but won't shift around in there. It can only sort of stay in that spot. And so I used a thicker vintage, it doesn't have, oh no, it does have a label on it, DMC Sibylla pour crochet for crocheting, made in France, 40, I think it's a 40 weight. And so yeah, I use that to stitch around for noticeable stitching around the outside. So again, you get just that nice sort of, yeah, stitched effect around the rooster on the back. But I think he is very sweet, and I really like my little, I still like making these little Epiflex fabric hexie flowers. So that sits in there. The little strawberry sits in there. And then if we take a look at the rest of the piece, we have a lovely little house. And I've just done some very simple stitching for the roof there, just with just a red thread. So I did some little crosses along the, I guess the sort of the main line of the roof, and then just some little dashes along the paler grey. I've put some little shrubs in, little just French knots to make the shrubs. I've also stitched the pine tree, so just done outline stitches using the darker green Wonderfil Razzle. Just loving my my threads. They just give such a luminous, they really bring a piece to life. And then I've just done, yeah, mark making stitches throughout the tree to give that sort of fir tree effect. And then a beautiful hot blazing sun. And this is almost like, I think they call these, do they call these spider webs? But it's the same, really the same method that you use as when you're making your Yorkshire buttons. Yeah, I'm sure it's the Yorkshire buttons. I think I've actually got one here. Let me just, this is just one of my, buttons made with the same technique, which is where you then fold it over and make it into a button. But yeah, I just did that on the design, and obviously I didn't go all the way around, didn't have all the spokes out, but it still worked perfectly well. I just carried the thread across the top section of it. So, and that was done with this beautiful variegated Wonderfil orange and ready coloured one. I'm not sponsored by Wonderfil. I just love their threads, and I'm planning to buy some more of the regular coloured ones as well. And I'm sure I will get through these variegated ones in due course too. And then just a nice checkered sky, and then we move on to the tree. And I thought, oh, nice red foliage of the tree. What could I put on it? And I recently got from Purveyor of Reclaimed Textiles. I think these are probably new, even though most of her stuff is vintage, but who knows, it could have been in her collection a while. These little fuzzy small orange beads, and I just thought, oh, don't they make, sorry, I just bumped the camera, don't they make the most perfect little peaches? So I stitched those on, and then just did some little detached lazy daisy stitches for the leaves on them, and they're just attached onto the tree. And then I've stitched all the way around the outside just to hold the piece down. You can see the other stitching on the back. And then, as I'd mentioned, I'd done all the stitching over this front piece before I actually stitched the piece onto the vintage backing bedspread fabric that I've been using for all my squares. So I hope you enjoyed that little look at it. Hopefully it gives you, some fun ideas. That's what the little pockets look like. I just love it. I think it's fun. I would have fun if I received this, and that's my whole thing. I want to be making things that I would love if I received them in the mail, and so this will be off to the lovely Michelle, and thank you so much for being my swap partner, and I hope it brings you lots of joy, Michelle. So thank you, and take care, everyone. Hope you're having a lovely crafty day as well. Bye, everyone.